Welcome to the Mortgage Podcast, where we give tactics, strategies, and inspiration to get you to 10 plus loans per month. We talk a lot about how to make a ton of money in mortgage while also being happy and thriving in your personal life. If you want to be a mortgage millionaire, you're in the right place. Hello, everyone. It's Todd Scrima, and welcome back to the Mortgage Podcast, where my goal is to get everybody in America to 10 plus loans a month. So, Todd, is that really possible? I don't know. I think it's possible for anybody if we think about it correctly and we learn the right skills and have the right mindset. So today is a little bit more of a mindset one. And the topic is burnout versus boredom. What are we actually feeling? Helping LOs identify what's really behind not feeling well or a slump or anything like that. So now, by the way, when I say that, it's very interesting to me in today's market. You have some people doing really well. You have some people doing really bad. And you have a little bit in the middle, but not a lot. So I think this is one of the most interesting times we've ever lived in, certainly in our industry. I'm going to be pretty open on this subject. I like to transparent as I can. So you're not going to find that I'm perfect at this either. So let's dig in. So first of all, I think definitions are important. Burnout to me is an emotional or physical or mental state where you feel exhausted, and it's like over a time period of like an extensive time period. So it's not one day, it's not 2 hours. It is a time period of a month or a year or 6 months or 2 years. That's that feeling. Just so we can recognize some signs. We feel depleted with energy, and we've all had that feeling. It's like having the flu. We just don't feel great. I had this is kind of off topic, but I tore my labrum in my right shoulder working out. This is about 3 weeks ago. And for 4 days, I was in so much pain. They couldn't give me enough codeine or whatever they had me on. Like, I was in severe pain, did not work. I just was in pain. Talk about depleted energy. Like, I had trouble walking, right? So that's that feeling. We've all been there. Okay. But this would be a prolonged feeling of that. Okay. Not a few days. I like this one. We start to feel cynic or cynicism or detachment. So we are feeling distant from our job, or we're feeling cynical about the work that we do. Not another loan cancellation. What the hell's the government doing, right? That stupid borrower, that realtor didn't even know how to write the offer. We're cynical. Maybe it could be angry. I guess you could take that, but it's cynical. You know, there's certain people, like my great grandmother was cynical all the time. She was just an angry woman, and no one wanted to be around her ever. So that's that feeling. If we start to feel like we're getting cynical and or detached, that's that feeling. And then, of course, the third telltale sign is our performance goes down. We feel ineffective. We lack accomplishment in our work. And those are all examples of burnout. And this leads to things like anxiety, depression, lack of sleeping, physical illnesses of all kinds of types. Where if we switch gears, boredom, that's more characterized by a feeling of apathy, not caring, lack of feeling stimulated, and almost a feeling of pointlessness. Is what I'm doing really matter at all? That's the feeling of boredom. And they're very different, but sometimes get confused. I've got a book coming out here and tells a story about a loan officer who is going through burnout. She's not going through boredom. She's going through burnout. And she goes through a process where she learns to get out of it. So even for me, like, even though I wrote the book, when I reread it, I was like, wow, in this story-like format, it really makes sense. The emotions she was going through combined with the different actions she was taking and the things that she was learning. So I'm very proud of that short book. It takes about 1 hour and 20 minutes to read. But most loan officers, much more in burnout than boredom. It's not really boredom that most people are feeling. I'll give you an example. If, let's say, a loan officer, they're in a normal market, they were closing 6 loans a month, and now they're struggling to close 1 on average. If all of a sudden that loan officer was closing 10 loans a month, they would be feeling a lot better. And they wouldn't be bored anymore, and they wouldn't be burnt out anymore. You know, that's just an example of how I want you to think about this. So I think the question is, what do we really do about it? In 2023, I was faced with some big decisions. And if you remember, coming into 2023, the market rates went up from 3% to 7%.
in a matter of months. And the Shangri-La feeling and the paychecks and all that stuff ended. And it was a couple months. Well, I'm running a mid-sized company and I'm faced with the emotion of laying off a lot of people. Now, if you get to know me, I would rather do almost anything than to give up on an employee. Almost anything. I would work for free. I would dig ditches. I would poke myself in the eyeballs. Like I would almost do anything other than lay people off. But you can't, I mean, the fact is you're doing half the amount of loans. You can't keep half the people. So that for me, that was a burnout phase. And I've been pretty fortunate to somehow not have that feeling very often, but it was heavy for me. I had trouble sleeping for months. I got physically ill, flu type symptoms more than once, and it wasn't COVID. Just because I'm under so much stress, my body's weak. I remember having the feeling of lost. Someone told me that to me once, like the feeling of lost, like doubting my self-confidence, doubting what I've done for the last 29 years. That was for sure burnout because I knew I had to make big decisions. It was so hard for me, I can't tell you. And it was very confusing. Like it was so, at one point I looked at buying a couple companies, actually 3 or 4, just to save people's jobs. At the end of the day, the companies were in the same boat I was. I was like, this ain't gonna work. I'm gonna buy this company and then lay it off half the people again. So there's a few things I would say on this, on overcoming this. And I like using a few things because there's probably 50 things that we could talk about. But for me, and for people that I've seen go through this or helped go through this, I think there's a few things that help. The first one is going to sound so blasé and generic that you're going to be like, Todd, are you really saying that right now? Realize that all things pass with time. Loss of a loved one, business cycles, hunger. If we over-focus on short-term things, it takes away our long-term hope. Let me say that again. If we over-focus on short-term things, it takes away our long-term hope. I was talking to my mother last night. My mom was diagnosed with cancer a couple years ago. She's been on hospice for about 6 months. At the time, they gave her 9 months to live. She told me last night that she was put on, don't quote me on this, her words, level death. I'm like, the hell does that mean, level death? Evan, I don't know this for a fact, but she described it and said, that's when you're in final stages. So we got a month or two. It's really sad. Isn't that kind of sad? It's really sad. So in a personal light, how do I need to think about this? Well, at one point when I saw her a few weeks ago, we're sitting on the couch and I said, Mom, you did it. She's like, did what? I have 4 great kids. They're all well adjusted. They're all doing great. They're all great people. You did it. You left your mark. You should be very proud of that. Does that mean that I'm not going to struggle to go through this time? No, it doesn't. But I can celebrate her and I will continue to celebrate her. So life is hard. We're all going to die. We all know these things, but that's what we're going through. So how do you relate that to what we're going through? Well, we're total guess. I don't like being like rub the crystal ball, but we're probably in a really hard market for another year or two. It'll be 5-6 years before we're out of this total, right? Realizing that from 2023, what I'm saying is the mortgage industry probably won't normalize in any significant way until sometimes in 2026 or 2027. That's a guess. But I also know that it's a cycle. And so realize that life is hard and we go through cycles and things pass with time. There's things that have happened in all of our lives that we don't care to relive. But we actually, in some odd ways, are kind of happy we've gone through it. Like being poor in college and eating cup of noodles every day. We didn't like it at the time, but it was kind of fun too, right? So just realize that we're gonna go through this, so we shouldn't fight it so much. Okay, there's a certain amount of acceptance and just realizing there's a time and a place for everything. Number 2, ask yourself, what is allowing me to feel this way? Now, for most people in our industry, this podcast is for loan officers and branch managers and people like that. Most of us are 100% commission. And so really, if we get very specific on the symptom we're trying to solve, it's lack of income or lack of results. And how do we fix that? In other words, that's what I call the choke point. That's the choke point. Now, I just talked to one of my loan officers closing 27 loans, talked to someone on Monday closing 32. So there is a way to fix it for sure. But what it's going to take is recognizing what that choke point is and massive focus on that. If I was a loan officer today, the only thing I would consume on my time when I wasn't working is how to be a better salesperson, how to market better, how to do all the things that we talk about that have to do with marketing and sales. How do we ask better questions? How do we target market better? That's all I would do. That's the only thing I would be obsessed. I'm not doing anything else but improving that skill, because that's really the symptom or the choke point that is having us feel this way in the first place. It is not the weather. It is not the government. It is not even the mortgage business. The mortgage business could be worse than it is today, but if you're closing 10 loans a month, somehow you're proud and happy. So find out what that one thing is, and put massive focus on it. And I don't see people do that. They dabble a little bit here, dabble a little here, dabble a little there, whip this up here, and they wonder why they're not making progress. Because the human brain and the human person can only focus on one thing, getting better at one thing. This is my belief. One thing at a time. And when we spread it amongst 10 things, it doesn't work. The third thing kind of goes with the second thing, and that is learn new skills. This is kind of like a new hobby. It's hard to do because it takes a lot of self-awareness in order to discover the new skills we need to learn and then change them. Like, give an example. It's really hard, if you're closing 3 loans a month, it's really hard to look at yourself in the mirror and literally say out loud, I'm not that good at sales. I need to get better at sales. That is so hard to do that. And I bet you not a single person on listening to this has ever done it. Literally say it out loud. Because if we're in a market where some people are closing 27 or 32 loans and others are closing 0 or 1, it's not that you're a bad person. We just don't have the proper skills. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you got to learn. You know, years ago, this is a silly story, but it'll help you understand. Years ago, 21 years ago, I was in a rock and roll band. And I love guitar. I've been playing guitar since I was 12. And the band was put together as like to do a few parties a year for friends. That was really the whole premise. Well, we played out a few times, and 3 of the 4 guys, except for me, wanted to go big. They're like, Todd, we need to learn 50 more songs so that we can play all night and we could do bigger parties and we could play in bigger nightclubs. And I was like, guys, I don't have those skills. It took me literally 9 months to get decent at 30 songs. I don't have the skills to learn 50 more. And I literally told them that in a band meeting and said, hey, I'll be here for a month or so, find a replacement. I'm okay. I just can't learn that many. I'm not that good enough. And I don't have the time to go get good really fast. So that is me having self-awareness. That change in growth, getting better at that choke point, allows us to feel a lot happier a lot faster. And one thing I know about happiness is when we're making progress in an area, we're happy. So when you look at all this, as far as how to overcome burnout, number 1, realize that there's a time passing that is true for everybody. Number 2, it's going to take, we want to focus on what is the choke point, what is the thing we're trying to fix, just one. And number 3, going to work on learning that and fixing whatever that is. And for most of us, it's marketing and sales. I mean, 99% of people in the industry, it's marketing and sales, including me, by the way. I'm nowhere close to good enough at it. So the last thing I would say on this is going to sound super negative. I was talking to someone yesterday, and he just said, Todd, I love this. I wake up every morning excited to do this, and he just was so exuberant about loving the mortgage business. And he's doing twice as better than he did last year. And I think it's because he just loves it. But I think there's some people where they don't wake up that excited about it. And that doesn't make you a bad person. If you don't wake up and think, how do I get more deals? How do I help that realtor? How do I help that borrower? How do I solve that problem? How do I do a bunch of sales? Oh, I'm so excited about the teaching I'm going to do in front of 12 agents today. If you're not waking up that way, be honest about that. Because one thing I know for sure, life is too short to do things that you just don't love. Now, can you make yourself love it again? If you're just in burnout and we got to fix the result, you can get back to loving your job. Now, it's not a 1-week process. It may be 3 months or a year. It'll take time. But it's get confusing between those two things. So how do you know that? I would just ask yourself, hey, did I used to love this for a long time? If the answer is yes, then that's great. Then that just means we got to fix the one thing. But if it's, hey, I've never really loved it, that's the difference. So I took kind of a risk on this topic. I tried to be very honest about my thoughts and feelings on different things that I go through in the hopes that it would help you do better faster. And I hope you appreciate it. If this is one of those things where, hey, I know one person that needs to hear this message, please forward it to them. That's how this stuff spreads. I don't advertise the podcast and all that stuff. It's just, I do it because I have a passion and a love for helping people get to that 10 plus loans a month. It's so exciting for me to see people do that. I can't even tell you. And I think I'm a weirdo because I don't even know why I get so excited. I just really like people that are into achieving and becoming something for themselves and their family that they can be proud of, that they can love what they do, that they can save money and build wealth. I just think it's like a gift in business that I love to help people with. So if you thought this resonated with you, maybe it'll resonate with someone else, and maybe it'll help shift them in such a way that they start doing a little bit better or even a lot better. Thanks for listening. God bless you all. Have a beautiful day.